If you're watching this today, there's probably a reason. Maybe you're going through something painful right now, a breakup, a rejection, or maybe it's that bitter feeling that someone took you for granted, never really respected you, or just walked away without you ever truly understanding why. The first thing I need you to hear is this. What you're feeling right now is completely valid. That pain, that emptiness in your chest, that sensation like the ground just disappeared beneath your feet, all of it is real. I'm not here to tell you it's easy. I'm here to show you something far more important, something most men in your situation don't realize yet. Here's the truth. How you respond in the coming days and weeks is going to determine everything. Not for her, for you. Because when it comes to the pain of a breakup, there are two types of men. There's the one who chases after her, who explains, who begs, and who, without even realizing it, destroys himself in her eyes and in his own. And then there's the man who chooses silence, who steps back, who rebuilds himself, and who a few weeks later has become a version of himself that nobody recognizes anymore, in the best possible way. Today, I'm going to walk you through 10 powerful principles rooted in ancient wisdom, a philosophy over 2,000 years old that guided emperors and warriors through their darkest hours. And I'm going to show you how to apply them to your situation starting right now. Stay with me until the end, because the last principle in particular might completely transform the way you see yourself. That's where everything really shifts. Let's start with the foundation of everything else. Silence is a weapon, never a weakness. When someone hurts you, leaves you, disrespects you, your instinct screams at you to react, to speak up, to defend yourself. That instinct is deeply human, but in most cases, it works against you. Here's why. Every time you react out of emotion, every message sent, every call made, every attempt to express your pain or anger does something you don't immediately see. It gives her value. It confirms she still has power over you. It shows her she can make you react without even trying. Now imagine the opposite. You say nothing, absolutely nothing. No messages, no calls, no comments on her posts, just complete, deliberate silence. You need to understand a fundamental mechanism of human psychology. We all have an instinctive fear of silence, far deeper than our fear of anger or shouting. When someone yells or begs, we know how to respond. We can defend ourselves, ignore it, or feel superior. But when someone goes completely silent, when they disappear without a word, the other person's mind shifts into uncertainty. And uncertainty is deeply uncomfortable. It forces reflection, questioning. She starts wondering if you're okay, if you're angry, if you even care anymore. And that's precisely when something begins to crack in her mind. She replays events. She questions her own decisions. She feels this visceral need for validation, for a response, for confirmation that you still exist and that you're still suffering. But if you give her nothing, if your silence remains total and prolonged, that need can never be satisfied. That's when the power dynamic truly begins to shift. I call this the principle of presence through absence. The more you're physically absent, the more present you become in her thoughts. And I want to be very clear about something essential. This silence isn't manipulation. It's not some strategic game. It's a decision to stop spending your energy on someone who, in this precise moment, doesn't deserve it. It's a decision to take back possession of yourself. Silence isn't running away. It's presence charged with power. Which brings me to the second principle. Never chase her. Let her sit alone in the chaos she created. I know what you're thinking right now. If I disappear, she'll forget me. She'll move on and I won't exist to her anymore. That's an extremely common belief, and it's also one of the most false. Here's what actually happens when a man chases a woman after a breakup or disrespect. By running after her, you send her a message of brutal clarity. I'm available. You don't need to justify anything. You can treat me however you want, and I'll still be here. And by sending that message, you become something very specific in her mind, what psychologists call an emotional safety net. An emotional safety net is that person you know will always be there, no matter what happens. And psychologically, a safety net is never desirable. Sure, it's reassuring, but it's not exciting. It doesn't fascinate. It's comfortable. And comfort gets taken for granted. Now, when you stop chasing, when you no longer offer that net, something radically different happens. She has to face alone the void you leave behind. And that void isn't neutral. It weighs on her more with each passing hour, with each day she receives nothing from you. That void whispers to her constantly, I let someone go, and he didn't come back for me. I'm not telling you to do this to teach her a lesson, because you never change others through strategy. I'm telling you to do this for yourself, so you stop being the one who chases, so you finally set standards for your own life and how you deserve to be treated. But there's a natural side effect to this decision. When you stop running, you allow her, despite herself, to feel the real weight of her choices. And that's a lesson neither you nor I can teach with words, only with your absence. I call this the law of the void. Nature abhors a vacuum, and human beings even more so. When you leave an empty space where you once stood, something must fill it. And often, that something is awareness. Now comes a truth nobody will tell you, frankly. The pain you're feeling right now, this pain of rejection and humiliation, is one of the most powerful resources you've ever held in your hands. I know that sounds absurd when you're suffering, but let me explain. Intense emotional pain generates raw, uncontrollable energy, desperately seeking an outlet. And you have two ways to direct that energy. The first is to turn it toward behaviors that weaken you. Scrolling through her social media endlessly, sending messages she might never open, replaying the relationship in your head for hours looking for what you did wrong. That's called rumination, and it slowly but surely eats you from the inside. The second option is to direct that same energy towards something constructive. The gym, a project abandoned too long ago, a skill you've dreamed of developing, a professional goal, a daily discipline finally maintained. And here's what happens when you choose this second path. That pain, instead of weakening you, becomes the very engine of your transformation. I call this the internal furnace. Pain is the wood, and you decide what to do with it. Let it rot, or set it ablaze to heat something new. The ancient philosophers who influenced emperors had a fascinating way of approaching hardship. They never asked, why is this happening to me? But rather, what is this trial trying to build in me? That's a radical shift in perspective. And it's also a shift capable of literally transforming an existence. Because among the most accomplished men in history, in sports, business, or art, many made a breakup, rejection, or humiliation the starting point of their rise. Not despite the pain, but because of it. Pain isn't your enemy. It's your most brutal teacher. And the most brutal teachers are often the most valuable. Now, I need to talk to you about a fascinating aspect of psychology, without claiming universality here. When a woman leaves a man or disrespects him, there's often a part of her waiting for something very specific in return. An intense emotional reaction, an explosion, tears, begging. Why? Because that reaction confirms a precise fact, that she had power over you. And that power, even poorly used, flatters the ego. That's exactly why you must never offer her that. I'm not telling you to deny your emotions or fake indifference, because that would be lying to yourself, and it never works. Your emotions are real, they're legitimate, and you have the right to feel them fully. What I'm telling you is not to let them express themselves outward in an uncontrolled way. There's a fundamental difference between feeling an emotion and becoming its slave. Feeling sadness, anger, or frustration is deeply human. Letting them dictate every action, every message sent, every decision made, that's where you lose ground. The ancient philosophers had a word for this inner command center. Their central idea was disarmingly simple. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can always choose how you respond. That's precisely where your true freedom lies. I call this the principle of inner space. Between what happens and your reaction, there's always a space, and it's in that space that your choice is made. The man who masters that space masters his entire life. The one who lets that that space close, who reacts impulsively without perspective, becomes predictable, and the predictable has never been powerful. When you don't react as she expected, when you remain calm, composed, silent, you become something unusual, something she hadn't anticipated. And the unexpected always produces instinctive fascination. Your calm becomes your armor, and that armor sends a message of absolute clarity. You no longer have power over me. That's the precise moment when something cracks in her, not to hurt her, but so she understands without a word that the power has changed hands. Because the real battle is never between you and her. It takes place entirely in your own mind. If you lose that internal battle, you lose on all fronts. But if you win it, if you master your reactions, if you stay anchored in yourself, you gain something that goes far beyond this relationship. You gain your own dignity. Now comes a very misunderstood principle: emotional detachment. Many men believe this means becoming cold, distant, cynical, incapable of feeling. That's completely false. The detachment I'm talking about is much more precise. It's the moment when you stop tying your personal value, what you think of yourself, what you feel about your own life, to her attention, opinion, or presence. And it's at this precise instant that something remarkable happens. As long as you need her attention to feel good, you remain vulnerable. She can then manipulate that need at any time, make you feel important by giving you attention, and miserable by withdrawing it. And if she's understood this mechanism, consciously or not, she can use it as leverage against you. But the day you no longer need her attention to feel complete, to feel good in your own skin, you become a man who's self-sufficient. And psychologically, that's among the most magnetic qualities that exist. I call this phenomenon the principle of emotional self-sufficiency. And it produces a fascinating paradox. The more you need her, the less you attract her. The more you learn to do without her, the more magnetic you become. Why? Because emotional self-sufficiency projects something very precise: inner security. And inner security is one of the rarest and most desirable qualities you can communicate without saying a single word. There's another effect of this detachment. When you're no longer affected by her manipulation attempts, messages designed to make you feel guilty, posts meant to make you jealous, ambiguous signals meant to make you react, she eventually understands something essential. She's lost her influence over you, and it's often at this precise moment that she starts seeing you differently. Here's the ultimate paradox: if she ever comes back, it will never be because you chased her, but precisely because you didn't. Whether you want her back at that point is an entirely different question. What's certain is that you'll have regained total control of your own existence. Let's talk now about guilt, because it only emerges under one precise condition: that you hold firm. Here's what few people truly understand about the psychology of regret after a breakup. Guilt never sets in immediately. In the first days, the other person is often locked in what we could call an ego bubble. She convinces herself she made the right decision. She tells herself a story where she's justified, and that's a perfectly normal psychological defense mechanism. But here's what happens over time. That ego bubble needs constant feeding. And what feeds it? Your reaction, your messages, your attempts at justification. Every interaction, even to protest, even to express your pain, provides fuel to stay locked in that bubble. It confirms to her that she still occupies a central place in your life, and that deeply reassures her. She can then tell herself, I see he's suffering, so my decision had weight, so I was right. But when you give her nothing, when your absence is total and prolonged, that fuel eventually runs out. And when it runs out, the bubble inevitably bursts. That's precisely when guilt begins to set in, slowly, insidiously. She then wonders if she didn't exaggerate, if she didn't misjudge, if she didn't let go of someone who deserved much better than what she gave him. But, and this point is absolutely crucial, this process only triggers if you maintain silence. A single message from you, a single contact acts like a valve that instantly releases all the tension your silence had patiently built. You then erase in a few seconds, days, or even weeks of psychological work. Your silence is the definitive closing of the chapter. You decide, without having to say it, that this story is over. And that closure, as paradoxical as it seems, is often what finally forces her to face the reality of what she lost. Let's now talk about your attention, because it's a rare currency, and it's time to stop spending it freely. We live in an era where attention has become the most precious resource there is. Social media was designed to capture it, and in doing so, redefined how relationships work. Today, watching someone's story, liking a post, sending a simple message, all of that constitutes a form of attention, and that attention has real value, whether we like it or not. So when you check her stories at night, when you like her photo, when you send her a casual message just to stay in touch, you send her a signal of total clarity. You still exist in my mental space. I'm thinking about you. You still matter to me. And that precious currency you're offering freely without ever receiving anything in return. A very simple economic principle applies perfectly to human relationships. Scarcity creates value. What's abundant costs nothing. What's rare becomes precious. And your attention, if it remains constant, predictable, and free, loses all its value in her eyes. But if you withdraw it suddenly, completely, without the slightest explanation, it instantly becomes something rare again. And what's rare always becomes precious again. I call this approach the strategy of emotional scarcity, and it rests on a simple truth. Human beings desire what they cannot obtain. What's easily accessible always ends up being taken for granted. So ask yourself, how long have you been too available? How long have you been present, attentive, accessible, without it being appreciated at its true value? By completely withdrawing your attention, immediately and without drama, you accomplish two things at once. First, you stop feeding her ego with your presence. Second, you create a real void in her daily life. And that void, combined with the complete absence of your usual signs, generates a very powerful feeling. Curiosity. Why did he stop? What happened? Is he okay? Whatever you do, don't check her posts to see if she's posted something meant to provoke you or make you jealous. Because if you react, even invisibly, you enter her game. And when you enter someone else's game, you almost never win. Which brings me to a central point. Rise in silence. Because success is the best response there is. We're touching on something extremely important here, so listen carefully, because this is where real transformation happens. Many men, after a breakup or disrespect, aspire to revenge, showing the other person they're doing well, posting a photo so she sees it, telling mutual friends how wonderfully everything's going. I understand that impulse. It's human and natural, but it has a major flaw. It betrays the fact that you're still thinking about her. It betrays your persistent need for her gaze to feel validated. True ascension, the kind I want to talk to you about, is silent. It seeks no audience. It seeks no approval. Here's what I want you to do concretely. Every hour, every bit of energy you previously devoted to thinking about her, writing to her, analyzing the situation, reinvested in your body, your mind, your work, your projects, your friendships, everything you may have neglected because you were too absorbed in that relationship. And what happens then is remarkable. Week after week, you transform. I call this the principle of silent ascension. And it states this: the best response to give someone who underestimated you is to become someone they didn't anticipate. Not to prove anything to them, but to prove it to yourself. And when you reach that point, when you look in the mirror and discover someone new, stronger, more centered, you understand something essential. The success of your transformation now has nothing to do with her. It belongs entirely to you, and that's real power. The most elegant revenge there is, never needing revenge again. Here's a principle that may seem counterintuitive at first. Don't block her. Let her watch you build yourself. When we suffer, natural instinct often pushes us to block the other person on all networks, to completely cut the digital link. I understand that instinct, and sometimes it's necessary for your mental health, in which case you should follow it. But in many situations, when it doesn't cause you active psychological harm, there's an even more powerful strategy. Leave the digital door ajar while being totally absent from her life. We finally arrive at the most important principle of all, the one I promised you from the beginning, the one that can transform something fundamental in the way you perceive yourself. Listen carefully. She didn't break you. She revealed something you may have forgotten or perhaps never really understood. She revealed your own value, because you wouldn't suffer this much if you weren't someone who gave enormously, who loved sincerely, who was loyal, who was present. And those aren't weaknesses, they're rare qualities. The problem isn't that you gave too much. The problem is that you gave it to someone who wasn't ready to receive it. Someone who simply wasn't up to what you deserved. Not because she's a bad person, but because at this precise moment in her life, she wasn't ready for a man like you. And this is where something must fundamentally change in how you tell yourself this story. You didn't lose. She lost. She lost a loyal, sincere man, ready to invest fully. Maybe she'll realize it one day, maybe never. But in both cases, and this is absolutely essential to understand, your future doesn't depend at all on her awareness. Your future depends only on you, on what you choose to do with this pain, on how you decide to get back up, on the version of yourself you choose to become starting today. Ancient philosophy has a concept I deeply cherish: the love of fate. The idea that everything that happens to you, even what hurts you, even what seems unfair, carries within it the seeds of something better. Not automatically, not without effort, but if you choose to plant them, you will harvest. You were the prize from the very beginning. You still are, and it's up to you to remind yourself of that every morning, with her or without her. We've just gone through 10 principles together, capable of deeply transforming how you respond to pain, rejection, and humiliation. Silence is a weapon, never an escape. Never chase someone who left you, and let the law of the void do its work. Make your pain fuel and light your internal furnace. Master your emotions or become their slave. Cultivate emotional self-sufficiency. Maintain your silence until guilt makes its way in her. Withdraw your attention and apply the strategy of emotional scarcity. Rise in silence, carried by the principle of silent ascension. Let her watch from the stands. And above all, always remember, you were the prize from the beginning. What I want you to take away above all is this: none of this is an invitation to become cold, cynical, or to close your heart to the world. Quite the opposite. It's an invitation to become so strong, so centered on yourself, so anchored in who you are that when you reopen your heart, it will be for someone who's truly worthy of it. Ancient wisdom doesn't ask you to stop loving. It asks you to love from a place of strength, not fear, to give from a place of abundance, not lack. And that distinction, that subtle boundary between loving from strength and loving from fear, that's precisely where the entire quality of your life and future relationships is decided. The real choice is now before you. You can continue reacting as before, running, begging, spending your energy on people who don't deserve it, or you can decide today to choose differently. Strength over pain, purpose over person, construction over destruction. And that choice, that single choice, could be the starting point of the best period of your life. You watched her leave. Now it's your turn to build.